Hello, my name is Jason Bowl. I'm an urban planner with Snell and Wilmer, a law firm in Salt Lake. Previously, I've worked as the Deputy Director of Development Services in Ada County, the Planning and Building Administrator for Teton County, and the Planning and Building Administrator for the City of Victor, and a planner in Latah County as well. I have a strong love for the state of Idaho and the communities found there. And I'm excited for the opportunity to talk with you today about one of I think the most exciting things as elected officials that you'll have a role in, and that's the built environment of the community. It is one of the greatest assets that your communities have. And you'll be responsible for how that built environment interacts with the natural environment, those who live, work, as well as visit the community. And that built environment, it can be leveraged for economic development in the form of business attraction, tourism, and tax-based diversification. It is one of the more complex and public-facing issues that you'll face. But as I said before, I think it's one of the most exciting challenges you'll have and opportunities to work with the public. So mastering this responsibility does require knowledge and the ability to weigh and balance conflicting information and conflicting perspectives that you will hear in your time in office. So the question is, where does the built environment come from that we're talking about, and how does it work? So communities have the opportunity to adopt a comprehensive plan with a large amount of assistance from the public. There's lots of public input that go into these plans. And these plans usually consist of an inventory of existing uses, existing priorities, and existing opportunities that exist in the community for growth. They also include a vision of what the community wants to look like and what it wants to build towards. In order to accomplish this vision, communities adopt zoning codes, building codes, engineering standards, design standards, environmental protection standards or regulations, and other health, safety, and welfare regulations that all go in. These are the tools that are in place to help move towards that vision and accomplish that vision adopted in the comprehensive plan. All of these tools work together to create the character of the community. So as you're familiar with, new parts of a community feel very different than the old parts of the community. And a lot of this can relate to the changing and evolving standards that have been adopted and implemented in a community. And this diversity is a good thing, and in variation in how different parts of the community look and feel. So one of the challenges that you will be faced with is the complex issue of the complexity that is arrived from this multitude of regulations and multitude of tools that are in place to create this character and to create this vision. So one example that comes to mind in talking about this complexity is just when talking about residential structures. So oftentimes we think of a single family home. We know what it looks like. We know who will be using it, we know how it will be used and who will own it. But the reality is, when talking about residential structures, there's a wide variation in how they're used, what they look like or what the form is, and who owns them, what the ownership model is. And it's one of the things that we've seen market trends adding more and more complexity and variety in those three things and how they interact with each other. And oftentimes the building codes and zoning codes, as well as utility requirements, vary greatly based on how it's used, what form it takes, and the ownership. And so it's important to understand the diversity that's involved in a simple example such as residential as a residential structure. So there are also examples where the there's trends towards making these regulations more simplistic, where they're working together. So for example, recently, most of the building codes have started to incorporate floodplain ordinances and floodplain regulations rather into the standard building codes. So in the past, there may have been conflicting standards as to what a structure in the floodplain needed to consist of between a floodplain ordinance and the building code. But now we're seeing that them come together, and the building codes are adopting the standards found in zone or in floodplain ordinances in order to streamline the process and ensure that those conflicting regulations don't exist anymore, that they work together, they're cooperative. So as an elected official, you have many responsibilities, but your opportunities to influence the community will be amazing, and especially through the built environment. As I mentioned before, it's an awesome opportunity to influence the community and to work in the community. So I encourage each of you to become familiar with the comprehensive plan, that general vision, and understand what kind of character you want your community to have. But then take it a step further and understand the tools that are in place with the zoning codes, the building codes, and the standards that have been adopted, and understand how they work together to accomplish that vision. So I can tell you with a surety that staff, developers, and the public all really appreciate elected officials that have that sound understanding of how these tools work to move forward the vision that's been adopted. So I thank you for your time, and I wish you luck.
I am Maureen O'Shea. I am the State National Flood Insurance Program Coordinator. I've been with Idaho Department of Water Resources since November of 2015. The State NFIP Coordinator position is the liaison between the local community and FEMA. The National Flood Insurance Program is a voluntary program that a city, county, or tribe joins so that the flood insurance is available to their residents. For a city to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, it must adopt a floodplain ordinance and enforce floodplain management regulations that meet or exceed the minimum National Flood Insurance Program standards and requirements. These standards are intended to prevent loss of life and property, as well as prevent economic and social hardships that result from flooding. Nationally, 40% of the businesses that suffer flooding do not reopen. Your city may have joined the National Flood Insurance Program anytime since the 1970s, maybe in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, even some in Idaho have joined in the early 2000s. Floodplain development permits are required to ensure that proposed development, such as houses, businesses, roads, bridges, barns, and sheds, etc., meet the requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program and your city ordinance. When a person applies for a floodplain development permit, the city floodplain administrator will review the plans and make sure the project is compliant with the flood ordinance, also with the National Flood Insurance Program regulations, and with the building code. Development means any man-made change to improved or unimproved real estate, including but not limited to buildings or other structures, mining, dredging, grading, paving, excavation or drilling operations, or storage of equipment or materials. The special flood hazard area is also known as the floodplain. This is the mapped area where the National Flood Insurance Program's floodplain management regulations must be enforced by the community as a condition of participating. When a property owner buys a home or business in the floodplain and has a mortgage, they will be required to carry flood insurance for the life of the loan. Most communities have a system for issuing building permits. This same system should apply to development in the floodplain. Regulating all development in the floodplain is essential because fill or other material may obstruct flood flows just as a structure can. In addition to your ordinance, the National Flood Insurance Program regulations are located in the International Residential Code, Section R322, and the International Building Code, Appendix G. Most National Flood Insurance Program criteria are performance standards that do not prohibit development in the floodplain, provided the performance standards are met. Performance standards are typically met with plans designed by a professional engineer. The economic losses after a flood to a city or county are often devastating and beyond overwhelming. Idaho property owners and business owners are underinsured in relation to flood risk. Resiliency is the capacity to recover quickly from flood or other catastrophic events. Building to the proper performance standards and carrying flood insurance when in the floodplain will greatly improve a community's ability to withstand Mother Nature's wrath. I offer National Flood Insurance Program trainings around the state and encourage you and your staff to attend these trainings. Idaho Department of Water Resources approves or denies proposals to appropriate water or change existing water rights. It archives water right records, recommends and records adjudicated water rights, and oversees the delivery of water in times of shortage. To promote the sustainable development of water resources, the department gathers information and data about the water supplies of the state. Additional responsibilities include safety of dams, groundwater protection, well construction oversight, and regulation of stream channel alterations, in addition to coordination with local communities to comply with the National Flood Insurance Program. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Corey Reese. I am the Secretary General Manager of the Idaho Surveying and Rating Bureau Incorporated. We are an independent rating organization operating with a license from the Department of Insurance as a rating-making organization for property insurance. The Bureau is operated as a not-for-profit association of insurers. When the fire insurance industry was just getting started, companies would independently price policies, and this led to wild variations in rates and unhealthy competition in the industry. Over time, companies began forming rate-making associations to develop realistic rates that would protect both insurance companies and the public purchasing the insurance. These associations eventually paved the way for rating bureaus. The Idaho Surveying and Rating Bureau is an outgrowth of the Board of Fire Underwriters of the Pacific, where its operations were handled from Salt Lake City, Utah. In 1923, an independent bureau was formed and located in Boise, Idaho. In 1947, the organization became the incorporated association that it is today. One of the functions of the Bureau is to produce public protection classifications and building code effectiveness gradings for firefighting organizations and jurisdictions. The Bureau utilizes schedules developed by Insurance Services Office and licensed for use by the Bureau. Utilizing these schedules, our public protection representatives evaluate fire districts and building code jurisdictions to come up with a PPC score of 1 through 10, or a building code effectiveness grading of 1 through 10, or 99 in the case where we don't get a response when we request information. Affiliated insurance companies may utilize these scores as a pricing point in providing property insurance in the state of Idaho. It's important to note that the Bureau is not an enforcement agency or a state-run agency. We are an independent rating bureau tasked with providing impartial insurance information to our affiliated companies. In the case of fire districts and code enforcement jurisdictions that we grade, we do not make any requirements based on what we see. We simply use the data we collect to generate a result. It is up to the insurance industry to make judgments based on that result. Thank you for your time today.
Hello, my name is Susan Cleverly with the Idaho Office of Emergency Management. I am the State Hazard Mitigation Officer for Idaho. we administer and pass through grants from FEMA to local counties and jurisdictions for mitigation projects. We specifically are focusing on the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant Program, or BRIC, as it's called. This year, FEMA is offering $1 billion for that grant program. Part of the BRIC application requires a building effectiveness grading schedule. So that can be obtained through the Idaho Surveying and Rating Bureau. That code for scoring is from 0 to 10 and must be part of the grant application. Also under BRIC, you may apply for a grant to update your building codes. And you can also apply for making your building code inspections and processes more electronic. So if you have questions about your building codes and how to apply for grant funding, I would be happy to assist you. Idaho experiences many disasters. We have earthquakes, floods, winds. We have wildfires going on right now. A couple of years ago, Washington experienced snowmageddon, where the roofs collapsed. Even though they had a building code for a specific snow load, they found that that wasn't quite adequate. So they could increase their building codes to a higher standard to accommodate more snow load. Valley County has a building code that does away with cedar shake roofs in the wildland urban interface area. So that is a great building code to help reduce wildfire in Valley County. I urge you to consider looking at your building codes and to mitigate risk from future disasters. Please give me a call or contact me at the Idaho Office of Emergency Management. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Evans. I'm serving my fourth term as mayor of the city of Garden City. I wanted to speak briefly about best practices as it relates to administering a building development services program in your city. First of all, I just wanted to indicate that and remind you that the mayor's role or the city manager's role is to ensure that you're in a position to execute the requirements contained in the building code that presumably you have adopted and are setting up a program to implement. It's very important that you have qualified, certified professionals to administer this program. Building codes are complicated. Takes a great deal of knowledge and experience to plan review, of course, and do the inspection. And administration is a very unique component in this process. There isn't really a one-shoe-fits-all process that I'm going to share with you because the scale of loading that your city has will determine a lot of that. The basics that I've just explained with having qualified people to actually do the physical work of plan review and inspections carries forward regarding the scale, but how you set that up can vary depending again on the number of permits you have to process. For example, in Garden City, we get really busy sometimes, and we get periods of time where we're not very busy. So we contract for our building plan reviews and inspections. Currently, we are contracted with the Department of Building Safety of the state. We also have a secondary contract with a private vendor. That way we can expand or contract as needed, and I'm not burdened with full-time staff at times when I don't need them. However, if you have the volume, it may be better to have on payroll employees, regular employees that fulfill that role and can backfill in other areas sometimes. I know in some instances, these professionals are also qualified that they could help with even code enforcement if things slow down a little bit. But cities that are growing fast are going to need likely the latitude to have on-staff folks for control and response purposes. Let me transition now to talk to our smaller cities that have very small building departments. I want to encourage you, if you need help with processes, software, implementation strategies, I would encourage you to contact a larger city in your region. It's very common for large cities to help the smaller cities out with these kinds of resources. They have forms, they have very specific procedures, they have experience, and they have the sophistication that maybe is very hard for a small city to acquire on its own. So I wanted to leave you with that. We help each other out here in Idaho, and I know the larger cities would be happy to help if you need some help, as I've mentioned. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tony Morley. I'm the city administrator, the building official, and the zoning administrator for the city of Heyburn. I love all the hats I wear here in Heyburn, but sometimes it's a challenge to wear all the hats. We're talking about being a building official in a building department in a small city. Let me talk about some of the challenges that come along with that. It's best if the mayor and the city council hire somebody who is well-trained and knows the building code, because they're going to need the support of the mayor and the city council. And what I mean by that is the mayor and the city council should not and do not make decisions in the building department unless they specifically have a role to play in the building department that they've been hired to do. It can cause a lot of problems if people don't like the decision that the building official or building inspector makes and they run to the mayor and the mayor overrules them. That really causes a lot of problems. And not only does it cause problems with staff and personnel, but it can cause legal problems as well. There are processes in place. If there's a decision made by a building official or a building inspector, there should be an appeals process in place in the city to handle those types of things. And the mayor and city council should not wade in and try to make decisions or do favors for friends, family, and those types of things. I know that they always want to please residents and solve their problems, but when it comes to the building department, you need to let the people that are trained in the building department do their job and enforce the code. There's several things that you need to give the building department in order to do their job. One of the utmost things that they need is training. There's training provided by the International Code Council. There's training provided by local chapters and organizations. You should send them and encourage them to go to these trainings. There's training online. The building official, your building inspectors, they need to learn how to enforce the code. There's approximately, and I'm going to be broad, 3,000 to 5,000 pages of building code. And if you have all the supplemental editions of the different organizations, it could be up to 20, 30,000 pages easily. So they need to be trained on how to find the answers when they are presented in questions to the building department. The best way to do this is to go to trainings by qualified people that have been through the fire, through the furnace, and they can give these experiences and trainings to your people. Some of the other resources that your building department is going to need would be code books. It's imperative that they have a good set of code books. Those can be electronic or they can be physical. I prefer to have both. I like a set of PDF codes on my computer so that I can cut and paste when I'm writing letters. I also like to have a paper copy in my truck when I go out to do inspections. A lot of times you'll have a contractor or developer ask you what the code is, and you can just point to it right in the code and they can see it there. And that's important that they do see the code. Sometimes when you say that there's a code violation, they won't believe you. And so you can point it out in the code. You can either do it on the job or write them a letter after the fact and point the code out. But it's important that you have a code and you reference the code. When you say something is not up to code, you need to show which code that is. Vehicles are also important. I would suggest that the building department has its own vehicle, even if it's not used all day, every day. And the reason is those inspections can come in at any time, and they might get called to go out and look at a site, to go look at property pins, to go look at any numerous variety of things. And they need to be available to go out and do that. And sometimes it's tough because it's at the spur of the moment, but they need that vehicle. And if they're sharing a vehicle with another department, it makes it kind of tough to call up and, hey, can you bring the vehicle over? I've got to go do an inspection. It makes it hard to work that way. I also worked as a county building official. And while I was at the county, we contracted with all of the cities in the county. And so actually all the building and permits that were issued in the county and all of the cities in the county came through our office. And I had the responsibility to process all those permits, do all the inspections, and to do everything. It was quite a challenge. And one of the things that I would caution cities is to make sure you have a good line of communication with your building department. If you're contracting with the county, you need to be in contact with them. Don't just be silent on everything. You need to talk to them, tell them what it is you're expecting, tell them is what you need. Cities, you need reports from county. You need them to develop those reports, give them to you so you can see what's happening, how the building department's performing, if they're doing their job. And it's very important that those lines of communication are open and that they're exercised. And one thing that can get you in trouble is when you're contracting with a building department and nobody ever talks to them or tells them what it is they're supposed to be doing. So the building department starts assuming that they want things done in a certain way. And then they find out in no uncertain terms that that's not the way they were expected to do it. And it causes bad relations, and it also affects the quality of work sometimes. I've seen building inspectors actually cause problems with cities because they had a dispute going on. And it's not a good environment to work under. And it's something that I've had to correct and fix, and it's not a fun process. So please, if you're contracting with counties, make sure that line of communication is open, and not just with the county commissioners or those that are over and above the building department, but communicate directly with the building department.